Realized I just didn't have my mic on. So hopefully everyone could hear me online being loud enough. Each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit comments to 3 minutes. Alrighty. As stated, we're down one person. So I'll ask everyone afterwards if they want us to go forward or not. Is there any amendment or motion to approve the minutes for last month's meeting? Mr. Clapp? And second, you had a motion for it?
Yeah, I'll approve.
Motion to approve, motion to second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. There's no unfinished business, so we will move on to new business, case number 25-05-11 for, let's see, that was for, I can't even zoom in good enough. Thank you. For 411 Maxwell. Whenever you're ready, you may take it away.
Thank you. This subject site is located on the west side of Maxwell Avenue, and it's between North Sherman Drive and Park Avenue. It is within the one-family residential zoning district. The site's currently developed with an existing single-family dwelling. There's also a detached garage at the rear of the parcel. There are also a few other accessory buildings located at the rear of the parcel as well. The petitioner is proposing additions both at the front and the rear of the dwelling. The addition to the rear of the dwelling does actually comply with all applicable zoning ordinance provisions. However, the front addition is the one that requires the variances. More specifically, the dwelling requires a minimum front yard setback of no less than 25 feet. The dwelling in its current configuration maintains a non-conforming front yard setback of less than 25 feet. The petitioner is proposing to demolish the non-conforming part of the front of the dwelling, which you can see in several of the pictures is differentiated by a lower roof line from the rest of the dwelling. The demolition would actually result in a compliant front yard setback, but the petitioner is proposing a new front addition, which comprises of new living space as well as a new covered unenclosed front porch and steps at that same general footprint, and that would have a 20.4 foot front yard setback when measured to the closest point of living space. As for the front porch and steps themselves, you can again see from some of the photos that the front of the house sits on a slightly higher gradient than the sidewalk adjacent to it. And then, of course, as you all know, the zoning ordinance does allow unenclosed front porches and steps to encroach up to 7 feet into the minimum required front yard setback. Now, if the petitioner were to follow ordinance standards, the max they could encroach into the front yard setback beyond what's currently proposed would only be 2.4 feet. However, you can see based upon their graduated steps, they're only going to be 3.1 feet from the front property line, which is far beyond the ordinance limit of 7 feet. So the petitioner needs a second variance to waive the 14.9 feet from the maximum allowable 7-foot extension that the covered unenclosed front porch and steps is allowed to encroach into the minimum required front yard setback. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Reddy?
So their neighbor to the north is on Park Ave, right? So their east yard setback, they have that garage that's pretty much level with what the front yard setback request is. If this were a lot that were on Maxwell, would we be averaging the setbacks here?
Let me just bring up the plans 1 second.
Okay.
We would only take into account the adjacent parcel to the south, since the parcel to the north doesn't front onto Maxwell.
But if it did front onto Maxwell, it would be one of those average situations,
Correct.
Okay.
Over here, I think
I had a very similar question here too. It looks like, I drove this site, I'm looking at it on Google Earth right now as we speak, and all these homes seem to generally be in alignment. Is it safe to say they're all non-compliant for the most part, without measuring them? Or, I know you don't have all the data, but are they pretty all?
It could be reasonably assumed.
Okay. They look like they're in a pretty straight line.
Other questions?
Question.
Mr. Lineweber?
Assuming these homes were built in the 1920s or so, which is, does that predate the setback requirements that's in the zoning ordinance?
It's quite possible that they did.
Okay.
Just one last question. Alice, can you confirm the work they're doing, it's not encroaching any further into the setback, correct? Like where the steps are, what they're doing is going to generally be in alignment with that current condition?
Yes, so you can compare on page 12 of your packets. Their architect did include an existing site plan, which can be compared to what's being proposed. And as you can see, the new living space that's proposed at the front of the building is roughly the same as what's existing there, which is differentiated in the pictures with the lower front roof line.
Mr. Reddy?
But just to clarify, it looks like the steps are coming forward.
Yes, that's a new element. So
That'll be further forward.
Correct.
Than what's current. Okay.
correct.
Any other questions? I did have one in relation to the steps. Those steps, I'll call them steps just because they're in a stepping pattern, are almost like pads. And if they actually had that more in a ramp form, because they're so wide, would that be considered steps and therefore not needed to come before us? Or because it's still in a stepping motion, they're considered steps?
Yeah, because it's still in a stepping motion, we interpreted it that it still needs to comply with the applicable section of the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
So that's why it's in front of you.
Mr. Lineweber?
Alex, if those steps were rotated 90 degrees, would the dimensions still be non-conforming?
If they did it off to the side, so it was accessible from the driveway as opposed from the sidewalk, there is a chance that it could then comply. I unfortunately I can't confirm that right now, but it would what I can confirm is that it would result in a lower variance request than what's written in your report.
Okay.
Or that it might match what is currently there, since it looks like that's similar to what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? No, okay. Seeing none, the petitioner may come forward and present their case.
Hello. Thank you for your time tonight. I'm Don Brickner. I'm the co-owner of the house on Maxwell 411, where I grew up with my brother and attended Longfellow Elementary, which was right down on the same side of the street. It's gone now. And I also graduated from Dondero High School, which is about 4 blocks away. I guess it's now Royal Oak Middle School. Last year, my dad died, and last week, my mom passed away. And while she was blind and completely bedridden, very little to get enthused about, the one thing that lit up her face every time we were visiting her, and we seldom saw her smile except for when the plans for the house came up. And it just kind of awakened her. And my wife and I would be visiting her, and she would always ask the same question over and over again. She'd say to us, "Are you going to make it look like it used to be?" When we moved in 55 years ago, and it had her beloved front porch. My mom truly missed that porch, which had been the scene of, so many good times with the family, friends, relatives, neighbors coming over. Most of them are gone now. And she really never liked my dad's decision to enclose everything in the front, which nixed the porch, got rid of that, and it was a foyer and a TV nook, and it was kind of cool looking from the inside, but she didn't like it. She loved that porch, and while they didn't really fight about it, there was always sort of a little sour note that came up in the air when it would get discussed. And my dad even admitted to me secretly later, and he kind of regretted that because of the way Mom felt about it. But there really wasn't much going back. And so, she was also sad about, the deck in the back had been destroyed by a storm, and it was never really restored to its full functionality. And she always used to say, every house should have something in the front, something in the back, a deck and a porch. So, that was kind of her old-fashioned view of it. While she didn't really have any formal dying requests, like I said, she passed just last week and wasn't in the best of shape. This was the closest thing that we could think of that she was asking us to do. It's like, she didn't want to be in pain, which we made sure that she was taken care of that way. She had been in assisted care, but she wanted the house to be like it was. She was afraid that we weren't going to kind of make it look like she had remembered it, not that she was even going to be around to enjoy it. And so now with the whole street's recent makeover, if you drive down Maxwell it's kind of been gentrified almost. You know, there are all these new homes and everything, and people fixed up homes. But you look down, you know, the length of the street, and they've all got, not all of them, but a lot of them have porches, you know, and it kind of brings back the memory of the way Maxwell used to be. So we feel like, you know, Joe's and JSN's plans for the place really kind of pay good homage to the way Maxwell Avenue used to be, the way we remembered it, and the way it is now, too, because even a lot of these new homes have porches, lots of porches that come out. And so that's really kind of what we foresee for it, and that's kind of our hope for it. And I know that, I'm sure if my dad would be alive today, that would be kind of his hope along with my mom. So that's it. Thank you.
Questions for the petitioner? Anyone? Mr. Langweber?
One of the variances is for the front steps, and I see you've turned them and they're coming straight out versus the way that they're currently configured. Can you address the need to have those come straight out versus 90 degrees?
Well, the technicalities can probably be addressed by the builder here and his assistant, but from our vantage point, my wife and I'm retired and have a lot of severe limitations orthopedically. I was in a really bad accident about 8 years ago. A tree fell on my car, and I'm kind of like the bionic gimp now with a lot of replacement parts, and stairs are really difficult. And my wife is hopefully a couple years away from retirement, and we've wanted to, as we say, age in place. And we're in a house that we're selling right now that has stairs and a couple levels, and it's getting more and more difficult, and especially walking up steep stairs. The stairs that were there before, because of my mom's condition and her aging and my dad, we had to put special handrails and everything to accommodate them. We were thinking about putting in a ramp which was not possible based on the configuration, putting in a stair lift. And we see that as not that far away on our horizon. So we wanted something that could go up very gradually, as opposed to having to climb 6 steep stairs, which the house had a lot of steep stairs. It was built in 1914. So that's really a key reason behind that.
But you're also taking those straight to the sidewalk versus turning it and running them toward the driveway.
And now I'm going to have to let Tony address that. So anything else for me? Or?
That's all right.
Okay.
You can stay by, and if someone has a question, you can jump in.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Tony from Trademark Building. I'm the general contractor for the project, hopefully moving forward. We do have an alternate plan with the stairs turned to the side. I just don't think it got to you guys in time for the deadline. So we're on board with that and would like to turn them 90 degrees towards the driveway.
Okay.
Wait, so you want to turn them towards?
Yeah, we're okay with turning them towards the driveway and not having.
Because I was going to say, it's up to him.
They care about having the graduated steps,
Okay.
and you know, if it makes it possible to have them turn 90 degrees, that'd be better than not having them at all.
So you're able to make them still graduated, turn 90 degrees?
Yeah, you just run them kind of parallel to the front of the house like they were before.
Okay.
We're working with Charles from Landscape Architecture Company to help get the landscape design. So.
Okay. Because I was going to say, if you want to, okay, yeah, that's fine. Questions? Any other questions?
So then I guess what kind of variance would be needed then, or how much then will it extend towards the road?
Well, so the width of the current, I think, what is it, 4 feet wide?
Yeah.
So they would be 4 feet further, and you know then they would start traveling to the north.
Okay.
Yeah.
So under our ordinances, what would that require in terms of a variance? Thank you.
Well, by ordinance standards, what I had mentioned when I was speaking earlier is that the steps themselves can't go greater than 2.4 feet beyond the front of the house. So even if they were, adjusted 90 degrees, I believe the builder said they would be 4 feet wide. So it would still need a variance, but it would be a smaller variance then.
Okay. So what would that, sorry. I'm still not understanding. What's the smaller variance that's needed?
So instead of waiving 14.9 feet, let me see. What was the width of the steps?
Just to be sure, let's check the plot plan, so I'm not guessing. Let's see here. Looks like 4 feet. So I think the idea was if you have handrail on both sides, that reduces the width.
Can you pass that plan around real quick, just to
Yes.
let people see? Thank you.
So 36 is a pretty standard width for something, and once you have handrail on both sides, that results in having a pretty standard width. And going with the 36-inch and taking handrail out of both sides would result in maybe like 30 inches left over, and that would be hard to turn.
Just thinking, because of you said about the ramps and stuff, did you guys look at a ramp at all? And why, if that was able to work or not work, of having that nice long length, or is it?
Well, ramps are definitely a lot longer than that. So I think a ramp has to be like 1 or 2% grade to be handicap accessible. And that's a lot more aggressive than 1 or 2%, I believe. Just like it's like more, you're rising faster. So the idea was to, promote mobility longer, like so they could use the steps for longer. Because like once you put the ramp in,
No, that's
not
fine.
really
Yeah, because I
using it.
didn't know what the grade was there, so I didn't know
Yes,
how
sir.
the ramp could or couldn't work. But if
Yeah,
you're
I
saying
thi-
it doesn't work with the grade, that's fine.
I don't know if you could even have a ramp there, honestly. I think you might have to have like a platform lift. The idea is to get them get a ramp in the back one day where it would be conforming. Because I don't think there's enough distance in the front, and there's a lot of grade change, like they said. So
Okay.
yeah,
No
it's
problem.
pretty tight. As far as other hardships, so there is a really big electrical pole right to the right of the property and by the driveway, and that's what stopped this house from being like torn down and built into a new house, is because it's basically you can't do an attached garage, and so we're trying to make the best of the situation, trying to make it handicap accessible and kind of reuse some of the character of the neighborhood and restore this like 1914 built craftsman style home.
Mr. Klatt, you had a
I
question?
think the only thing I can add is, if we turn the stairs 90, it's a bit more, I know we're not talking about a wheelchair right now, but in the future, typically from a commercial standpoint, that turning radius is about 5 feet, I believe.
Yeah.
So I hate to just handcuff them to a 4-foot number. If they're looking for a reduction, I just want to make sure that we can at least provide
Agreed.
some buffer. If they add a ramp, it might not be ADA compliant at a 1 to 12 slope, but at least there could be some buffer to make the turn in a wheelchair with some assistance. So I just don't want to be short-sighted about a number of 4 feet. Maybe some, greater distance could, or greater width of that stair could be allowed for, at least at the landing level.
Go ahead.
Question for Alex. If they were to put a ramp in, would they have to come back to us for a variance?
If it's for like one of those ADA compliant ramps for like a wheelchair or whatnot, we do actually allow those to encroach into the minimum required front yard setback. Part of that's due to aging in place.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll, thank you very much. We'll open up the public hearing, and then afterwards, we'll ask if you want us to proceed or to adjourn for another month and hope that we have a full board. No guarantees ever. So anyone here to speak for this case, for or against, please come forward if you'd like. Going once, going twice. All right, public comment is closed. Would you like us to proceed with voting on it or to adjourn for next month?
I think we want to proceed.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring it to this side of the board. Discussion and or motions.
I'll make a motion to approve as requested.
Okay, is there a second? Mr. Klatt, seconds, go ahead.
Well, quick question.
sorry.
Is it a motion to approve, so A and B, correct, not with the reduction for the turn?
Correct. All variances present as presented.
Okay. Go ahead, you may present your,
Oh, okay. I was going to originally make or suggest that we lower that down to the 4-foot kind of width, as kind of had talked about, to lessen the need of the variance. But the reason I'm suggesting the whole variance is because of, as was my colleague Mr. Klatt said, with the wheelchair part, and of course with Alex talking about, the requirements for the ramp as part of the city's ordinance. I think aging in place is a good, good thing for the city, obviously. And I do understand the practical difficulty of having, knee and other issues, having those kind of issues myself. So definitely understand that and have no problem with it.
Mr. Clatt, anything to add?
No, I think that's an excellent point. You know, I'm always in favor of reducing a variance. If we could turn the ramp, that would help. From a aesthetic standpoint, I could see it's extending into the front yard. There are wider steps, but allows them to landscape at least the porch at that front. So I think it'll look more attractive this way. And I think we're always, I commend them for trying to open the porch up. I think that's something the city ordinance is promotes. We allow a 7-foot extension of the front yard setback to encourage that. We're walkable pedestrian streets. So I think that's great. And I think you're basically keeping that addition at the point that it's currently at. So I think it's a nice design, and for that reason, I support it.
Other discussion points?
Procedural question. If this were to be denied, is there, that's the end of the issue or not?
If the board were to deny the motion on the table, that would just be the end. The vote would have to be, of course, have the 5 affirmative votes in order to approve that then.
But if it's denied, we would not be able to make another motion to approve just A?
You took a motion.
Well, we'll have to ask Mr. Clusley, because the training session I went through talked about that if a motion to accept something didn't get the number of votes, you would have to present another motion to either different than that original one, which could include denying it, or accepting changes to it of lesser degrees.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if this is on. Oh, there it goes. I think what, and I don't want to speak for Alex, but I think what he was saying is the motion that was on the table was for both.
Right.
So that's what you'd be voting on at this time.
Right.
But
Yes, there's a motion already on the table. You can make a vote on it this time.
I would just, could they be split? Could we look at A and B and vote?
You'd have to make a motion to modify, and then there would have to be a support on that modified motion.
But I think the question is not whether or not, okay, the question is it just basically done if we deny both? Or not deny, if it doesn't have enough to pass, are both dead? Or is it able to then go back and say, okay, let's vote on this one and maybe a lesser degree of another one? That's more the question. Or if it's just, if there's no votes there, it's done. What I was taught in the training that I just went through was that if the original motion doesn't carry, that original motion cannot be made again. You can then do a different motion, which could be to deny both, or it could be to a lesser variance requested.
My mic is. I think if the board wants to go that route after the denial, I think the board can do that, but not on what was already denied.
Correct. Okay.
I also would make a comment that I don't think that's an appropriate course of action for the board. Following that logic, they could make potentially hundreds of motions.
I'm just
and
saying
that's
what
just
we
not
were-
that's not the point of the board.
I'm just letting you know what in training we were just taught. So. That's own personal stuff. Go ahead, Mr. Reddy. I saw your hand first.
Okay, well, I'm in favor of granting variance A, and I would be in favor of granting a lesser variance of, say, 5 feet on B. So I would request Mr. Wolf to consider an amendment to the motion on the floor, but that's just my 2 cents.
I thought I saw your hand up next.
Similarly, I think when there is a lesser degree of an encroachment that's presented that would be accessible and acceptable by the applicant, that it's taken as action that they're willing to do to satisfy their requirements, as well as lesser of a variance on our side.
So again, and this is kind of a question for Mr. Klatt, but that 5 feet would allow for wheelchair in the future and all of that. That's the general
I
standard.
mean, from a commercial standpoint, yes. I mean, it's different. Aging in place is a little bit different and not as restrictive, but I think that would prevent or provide a pretty nice buffer to allow for some assistance up the ramp to make the turn into the house.
Okay, yeah, no, if that's the case, then I would be fine lowering the variance to 5 feet. I
was going to say,
Can I just interject? I think if that's the route that the board's thinking of going, I think you need to ask the petitioner and make sure that's what they are looking for.
right, that's what I was going to say is, we can do two things. We can either, and I'm sorry, Mr. Moore, I'll get you in a second. We can either do as what has been suggested, split it up and have just go one by one, or we can right now ask the petitioner their thought, and then either way you're amending your original motion.
Correct. I guess maybe I'll ask Mr. Moore for his opinion first before I formally make my change.
Yeah, I'm just concerned because it didn't sound like their new plan with the side stairs was officially submitted in time. So do we even know that it meets building standards that it needs to meet? So lessening what they're asking for may put them in a position to have to come back here if that new plan doesn't meet standards, correct?
Yes, that's a fair point, yes.
But if we give them what they're asking for and they do want less and it does meet building standards, then they're
It's still
fine.
something
So
we could sign off
I'm just,
on, correct.
you know, over a couple feet, few feet, you know, okay. Thanks.
Mr. Clay.
I don't think there's any building standards that there's really no standards from a walkway standpoint up. I think this would reduce the number of steps, arguing that there's probably positive slope from the street up. So you could probably argue there'd be less steps from the driveway versus from the public way. So I don't think there's really any building issue regarding the sidewalk width. I think we're talking more about ADA and aging in place standards from the width of that sidewalk. We were just arguing that there could be potential landscape in front of the porch, which would soften it versus having the ramp up against it. But either way.
So I guess, Alex, just to ask the question, that if I were to amend my motion so it goes down to that 5 feet, and then they would not have to come back here a second time, is that correct? I think I'm missing something.
So long as their modified plans that they submitted for permits, was in line with what the board approves,
Okay.
and they would not.
Which is so maybe what we might do is the prudence thing is first just amend yours to say, let's just look at A, and then we can break the discussion, talk with them about B.
Okay, yeah, then that's what we'll do. So I'll just amend my motion just to approve variance A.
Okay. Mr. Klatt, do you
I
concur?
support,
Okay,
yes.
we will
discuss
discuss approving motion A. Go ahead. If there's anything more to add of what you spoke before.
Nope, said what I gotta say.
Nothing further added.
Any other discussion on motion A at all? Or this motion for granting variance A? Well, I'll definitely be in favor of this one. They're not changing really the outline of what it is already, so it's already non-conforming with the 4.6, and we're just keeping it with that 4.6 as it is, so I don't have a problem with that. All right, seeing no other discussion points, we'll move on to voting. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Now on to the next one. Before we go on to the next one, real quick, we just have a quick question for you. And we're fine either way, it is your preference. Would you like us to first try with going with what you've presented here with the plan, with the sidewalk going straight to the street? Or would you prefer us to rotate it? It's your choice.
Okay, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I had to miss the last meeting that happened with my wife and the builder and the architect because of things going on with my mother, who passed shortly after that. So I'm going to have to defer that to them. I really am a little bit in the dark on that. So
Yeah.
it's my wife, Karen.
Whoever's the most...
I was at the last meeting.
Okay.
And we had talked about having the sidewalk go straight to the street only for aging in place concerns, thinking that it would be a lesser slope maybe. And then we realized that having it go to the driveway made more sense because that's where you'll be getting out of the car.
Right.
So based on that, we brainstormed and said, let's make it go to the driveway. So that's how the turn came into be.
Okay. Was the sidewalk turned to the driveway directly against the house, or was it offset, like say 4 feet or 5 feet, so that you had a green buffer and it wasn't exactly against the house?
Well, when we had talked about it, it was more set out a little bit, so there was a green buffer and going across.
Okay.
But, whatever,
That's perfectly
yeah,
fine.
that's what we thought about.
Okay. All right.
And the only reason he didn't know about that is because he didn't get to that meeting.
That's fine. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Actually, real quick, do you know how big of a green buffer it had? Like 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet?
I don't know that we actually outlined that or that I was aware of it. I'm sure that the builder and the landscape architect are aware, but I couldn't say.
All right. We'll make an educated judgment if someone wants to or not. Yes, Ms.
If I could just suggest, I think the petitioner needs to decide, they going forward with this amount?
Yep.
Or is there a lesser amount that they are requesting?
Thank you. Yep.
I've been advised that 5 feet would be the amount we would be going for.
Okay, so a 5-foot buffer, and then the stairs, which would be 4 feet wide, because if you go how they're going toward the street now, they're 4 feet. So that would be 9 feet total from the front of the house. Okay. Would you like 10?
I would love 10.
Okay, thank you. We'll go.
Like I said, we're trying to make the house
Yep.
look beautiful and well-loved and fit into the neighborhood.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Moore.
I no longer understand what's going on here.
may-
So isn't 10 more than the 7 that's requested then, if we're...
It may be wise just for the petitioner to just offer it to them, to maybe revise their plans and postpone the decision for this case to next month. That way we're all on the same page, because there may be 9 different ideas
Right.
from 9 different members on what's being talked about right now.
Next. Mr. Klatt, you had a quick question?
Does the petitioner, does it cost them more money to resubmit? No, it's the same thing. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really want to move forward with the house plans. We're in a situation where, because of certain things in market conditions and everything, we had to sell the house that we're in. And I know that's nobody else's concern but ours, but we only have so much time to live in, and then we're going to be renting. And so at 63 years of age, we're going to be moving twice. And we're a little bit budget stretched right now. And the fewer months that we have to spend paying some pretty expensive rent, because rent is through the roof right now, in an in-between place, the better. And so we're really hoping to move this forward. We don't want to make mistakes, and we want to be in compliance and everything, but we're hoping to move it. We've experienced some delays on our own end that have kind of set us back.
So based on all the discussions and our, everything, so the 5 feet for landscaping and the 5 feet for the walkway is less than what we're asking for now. And it would make them really happy, and it fits their landscape architect's plans. And I think it would be a good way to make up the distance from the finished floor to the grade. So we'd be really happy with that, and that would help them move forward, and we're not gonna come back and change it. So it's very straightforward, but it's up to you guys.
Yes, you had a question?
I don't know, I was going to make a motion.
Question.
Yes.
So what would the dimension be for the requested variance? Yes.
If I can take a stab at it, I think instead of waiving 14.9 feet, I think they're asking to waive 10 feet. That's the way I understood that.
No, not quite. So the house would have a 20.4 foot front yard setback, which represent, and by ordinance standards, they're allowed to go up to 18 feet, because that would be 7 feet in front of the front yard setback. So if they were going another 4 feet from that, the variance would only be 1.6 feet.
So 1.6 feet would get them to 10 feet 4 from the setback line. Because if they're going, they wanted 10 feet for the outside edge of the stair.
11%.
So you have 5 feet here. Yeah, okay, 11.8.
So then it would be 11.8 feet. That is the requested relief would be 11.8 feet.
The size of the variance would be 1.6 feet.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to approve variance B subject, but lowering the variance to that. You said 1.8. Is that right?
6.
1.6 to lowering to that 1.6.
I'll continue my support.
All right. Discussion?
I mean, again, I think that again, I've said kind of what I had to say before. I definitely understand wanting to lower the variance. I think that's reasonable, and I don't think it's I don't think it's for us to, cause somebody to have to move more than they have to. I think that would be an unnecessary hardship that we would be putting in. So, yeah.
Nothing further to add.
All right. Discussion? Mr. Landweber?
Alex, can you run through the dimensions again, because
I'm
that's
not
not adding up
following
to me.
either. It's not mathing over here.
Yeah, I'm mathematically challenged here, I guess, but if I look at the front of the house as designed is 20 feet 4 inches from the property line. So they're encroaching from the front of the house roughly 5 feet, correct?
10 feet.
Well, right now, just to the front of the house. So you're starting with, because the line that you're measuring from is that 25-foot line, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's not the house front, it's the 25-foot line that dimension.
Well, yeah, so from 25 feet, they can go up to 7 feet into the minimum required front yard setback. That would be 18 feet.
So that's a 2-foot wide,
Green
they've got
space.
2-foot wide permitted.
Correct.
Or, yeah,
That they could potentially go.
and they want to be 10 feet, so we want 8 feet beyond that 2 feet, correct?
Yes.
So, yeah, I almost want to say whatever number it needs to be once we see the resubmitted plans.
Yeah, and I still think that's probably the best course of action, just so that we're all on the same page with this.
Now,
I don't think it's best to try to redesign the
if we
plans for
deleted-
them.
If we delayed just B, would they still be able to go forward today because we already granted A and do that portion and they just have to worry about B later on next month?
Yes, that's a potential option.
Okay.
There is a motion on the table though, correct?
Yes.
Correct. You are correct on that too. However, there's also concern about the calculations might not be correct on that motion, so that's the only issue.
So rather than if, we don't want to vote on a motion if it's going to be postponed, so the motion would need to be withdrawn, is that correct?
Well, they would have to agree to postpone B till next month. They could still go ahead with,
And I think they have already said, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like they want to go forward with it this month. So for that, I'm going to keep the motion on the table.
all right, comments?
Just to clarify, the motion is for 1.6 feet, correct?
The motion was intended to give them whatever they needed to have.
I understand, but the motion as made right now is for 1.6 feet.
Which I don't think works.
The math, so
If I might, I
25
think
foot-
you need to ask the petitioner exactly what they are looking for, the exact numbers, because the board, I see some confusion as to what the exact numbers that they are looking for. And if they don't know the exact numbers, then I think it might be appropriate to postpone. If they do, then someone could amend their motion if they wanted to.
Could we ask for a motion just to approve it as drawn? Is that possible?
no, it has to be supported with a specific number that you're requesting a variance for.
Are you talking about as submitted or as
Yeah,
as
as it's
drawn?
submitted.
Oh.
We just get it approved and submitted, because our result will be less than that anyways.
Okay.
So there's no reconfiguring. If you approve what's drawn, we're gonna do that or less, and everyone will be happy. And then there's no worrying about anything, but it's up to you accordingly.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to motion so it's approved as submitted.
Okay. Mr. Clark, do you have any issue with it?
I was originally okay with that to begin with, so I'll support.
Here we-
Any
Full circle.
discussion, any more discussion? Yes, Mr. Reddy?
Well, I'm going to be opposed now. Our standard is that the variance would do substantial justice to the applicant, and that a lesser relaxation than requested would not give substantial relief to the property owner or be consistent with justice to other property owners. And the petitioner has a plan for a lesser variance would satisfy. So I don't see how I can approve this.
All right.
I just want to voice my agreement with Mr. Reddy. I would prefer that we postpone this, get a proper plan put forward, and then we can actually review it and all be understanding the same about what we're actually approving. I'm just uncomfortable about the idea that we're approving a larger variance and then just letting them do whatever they want less than that. I would rather see a plan.
I would also agree with my counterparts here. If the petitioner already has a plan that involves a lesser variance and provides the same relief, I would be in support of that plan over the plan as presented.
Mr. Moore, do you have any?
No.
Well, I think the practical difficulty on this one is the fact that their plan is not on paper right now, and it's not in front of us, and more so that this is not like a normal step situation where you have a landing and steps right across. This is actually wide steps to allow them ease of getting up there. I think that's the uniqueness in this one compared to normal steps and porches that come before us. And I can understand their concern about trying to get something that works. If we deny this, now they're totally out. And I understand your concerns about granting them something further than what they presented in speech versus what's presented on paper. That is my biggest concern right now going forward, of not allowing them the chance to actually get what they want that helps their situation. And right now, it honestly doesn't look like they're going to get that unless they were to all of a sudden ask us to delay it till next month so that there's actually a plan, because... Yes, Mr. Moore.
I'm sorry, I do have a comment. I mean, there's a practical difficulty regardless, and recognizing that the construction season in Michigan is already short in general, I can understand their want to move forward with something. So we're talking probably a few feet at the most. I mean, there's already a condition here, so it's just my thoughts on it.
Mr. Langwood.
And I applaud the overall design of the home and reworking, an existing home. But we have an opportunity here, when there's a lesser dimension of an encroachment that would potentially satisfy. We're hearing that there is a lesser dimension that would satisfy. We just don't know what that dimension would be. And as it is now, to approve all, this is an all or nothing kind of a vote that we're being asked to do. So that's the issue, right? And it's really just a potentially matter of timing. So I'm looking at this as, is there a lesser number? And I'm hearing that there is, but it just has to be determined what that would be.
And I agree that we heard that the edge of the sidewalk was to be 10 feet from the face of the house, and there was concern about whether or not the numbers lined up, and that pushed us to more like this. So that's my concern, is that they could potentially lose just because we're not able to figure out without a hard drawing what that should be, so that we could actually have vote based upon that.
But I think our kind of pencil math here, looking at where the front of the house is positioned relative to that 25-foot line, and then with the 7 feet that's allowed from that 25-foot line, that if the number was 8 feet, then that should be able to accommodate a full 10-foot sidewalk and green space next to the house, which I think is pretty generous. And it does give them some latitude for, handrails and other things in there. 5 feet is a very, comfortable width. That's a typical sidewalk width. It's wider than a typical staircase might be, or in ramping. So, I would encourage, if the motion were amended, that would be a number that that may get some support.
Would you like us to
Can we
amend our
get
motion?
a specific
Oh,
number?
What?
I mean, we have the builder here. Can we just get a specific number to?
That's what they said, 10 feet from the front of the
I
house.
thought that's what they went for, was to ask for it as drawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't have what is drawn to the side. That's the problem, and that's why there's all this confusion.
But we're both happy with the 8-foot variance if we could get it granted. So that's,
So you're going to ask for 8 feet. So if I were to amend my motion to 8 feet, that's what you would
we'd
take.
be extremely happy with that.
And you guys would agree, would support an 8 foot?
You can't ask that before you do
Okay.
You can't.
So I'm going to amend it to that 8 foot request. That will be I will amend that so they can get their 8
Your
feet.
final offer.
Final offer.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, if there's no further discussion, we're going to have, the motion on the table is to waive 8 feet? Yeah, great. Yeah, I think it's 8 feet from the maximum allowable. Is that what it would be, or? That's what they request. Right. Okay. 8 feet from the maximum allowable extension. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. We'll move on to the next case. Number 25-05-12, 28168 Woodward Avenue. Whenever you're ready, you may take it away.
This is a property that several of the board members should be quite familiar with. It's located on the east side of Woodward Avenue. It has a width of 40 feet, a depth of 100 feet, and the total lot area is 4,000 square feet. It does contain an approximately 2,484 gross square foot commercial building. And the most recent use there was a retail space which sold art supplies. And the petitioner is proposing to operate an indoor fitness center which does Pilates classes. The zoning ordinance requirements for the parking calculations for indoor fitness centers is a little bit different from the other uses identified in the zoning ordinance. More specifically, for most other uses, parking is required based upon the usable floor area. But for fitness centers, it's based on the maximum building occupancy, which is established by the state building code. And the zoning ordinance says that it needs 1 space for every 4 people based upon the maximum building occupancy. So planning staff, we did consult with the city's commercial building inspector to determine the maximum building occupancy of this space. And it was determined that this building has a maximum occupancy of 50 people. So the site would require 13 off-street parking spaces. The prior use here with the retail tenant space required 8 off-street parking spaces. So the site is provided with a credit of those 8 spaces. And then based on the petitioner's site plan, they put forth, they're proposing 3 additional off-street parking spaces at the rear of the building. So the petitioner is seeking a variance to waive 2 of the minimum required 13 off-street parking spaces. And then, of course, it's important to point out that there are parking spaces immediately in front and just north of the space itself, but these are located in the MDOT state right-of-way as well as the city's right-of-way. So potential, patrons of the business could, of course, park there, but staff's unable to include those as off-street parking spaces provided. With that being said, commercial driveways are allowed a max of 30 feet per the zoning ordinance, and that's measured at the rear lot line. So there is a driveway at the rear of the building, which extends the entire length of the property, which of course is 40 feet. So the petitioner needs a second variance to waive the 10 feet from the maximum permitted commercial driveway width of 30 feet. Thank you.
All right, questions?
Oh, go ahead. I think your hand was up first.
All 3 of you went for it.
Just a quick question. I know there was a previous request that came to this board for a similar variance, but these are different requirements than what was presented to us last year.
Correct, because restaurants have a different parking count than indoor fitness centers.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mr. Clapp?
Yeah, I think my question's centered around parking. So Alex, so I saw like the credit of 8, but that from an ordinance standpoint, that former use, did it require 8 specifically, or was it a credit? Were they compliant with their 8 spaces? And then again, are there any uses other than what was there before that would be compliant with the 8 spaces? I mean, I know it's tough on Woodward. We run into this all the time where half these businesses are non-compliant. So
The practice by the planning division for these parcels on Woodward and really any other commercial building that has very limited parking is that if a tenant is proposing a use which has the same amount of parking or is proposing a use which has a less parking account, we can administratively sign off on that.
okay.
But in this case, since it's creating a greater deficiency in the parking that's needed at the site, therefore they need the parking variance.
All right. Oh, you're good? Okay. Mr. Moore?
The variance for the driveway, if that is not granted, does that affect the usage of the parking spaces that are behind the building?
It could very well make it challenging. They'd have to find a way to somehow narrow that by at least 10 feet.
Okay.
So it could impact how, you can see right here, the ADA van accessible space right here is reached from, I guess, if you were pulling in from the alleyway.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Sorry, was there someone over here on this side, or no one had? I thought, yeah, yes, then I'll come back to you.
And just to be clear, Alex, when you say it's a credit of 8 spaces, do you do that similar for the adjoining other buildings down that block? So if somebody's got, 0 parking, such as the neighbor, you would say they have a credit of X number of spaces that would have otherwise been required for that use?
Yeah, and each of these, I think with this particular block on Woodward in general, I think each of those tenant spaces are their own individual parcels, so we would look at them on a parcel by parcel basis.
And the reason why Woodward spaces are not counted is because they're not under the city control, so they could go away.
Yes, they're not privately owned.
Completely, and similar to the block south of this.
That's correct.
Where they turn into a green belt.
That's correct.
Mr. Clapp, you had a question?
Yeah, I wanted just to verify, is there no parking along Bassett for commercial uses like this? Is there, I can't recall if there's a...
Further down the street.
Further down the street. Obviously, we want to limit commercial. I love they're providing more parking in the back. So if we can keep the parking on site, granting those 3 spaces or the driveway, it just promotes less parking along residential street.
Yeah, I'm not aware if Bassett Drive is a no on-street parking street or not.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, if the petitioner is present, you may come forward to present your case.
Good evening. I'm the attorney for the applicant who's here today, Kaylin Sadip, as well as our architectural design team represented by John Guma, and the landlord's agent is also here as well. So thank you guys for your time tonight. This is a very unique situation, and Alex has been very helpful in providing a lot of information, but I just want to note that about the 8 parking space credit, that's based on, if we do the math correctly, that not the entire space, it's about 2484, 2470 gross square feet. And in order, according to your ordinance, to get to the calculation to get the 8 parking space credit, that means that the previous tenant only used 2,000 square feet of the entire space. So I just want you guys to be aware that if the previous tenant, which we believe they did use most of the gross area available, then the parking credit would actually be 10. So the retail use that is authorized there, if they did use all the available gross square feet, they would be at 10. I just want you guys to consider that. And also, with the ordinance, the designated use, which is permitted, is a fitness center. But as we all, I hope, know, things have evolved in what a typical fitness center is, and now the term fitness studio, which differentiates from the term fitness center. It's usually fitness center is thought of like a gym where it has a lot of equipment. It's not specialized. It's not intended for smaller class sizes, intimate, personal, which is exactly what this is. So she fell into the category of fitness center, which has the more strict requirement to not be able to use the usable floor area, which is typically what your zoning ordinance provides, because she fell in the category of fitness center. So I know that the thought behind this is we don't want to create a deficiency, we don't want extra traffic, which is absolutely the opposite of what you'd be getting going with her, because her usable floor area is actually a lot less than what the retail use is. And with the credit, if we would get the 10, based on if the previous tenant used the entire gross area, I don't believe that we'd actually be here before you if we got the credit. Because we would still need the variance for the back, which, by the way, the back, it kind of looks like a shopping center, even though there's different parcel or landowners, but the alley is already the way that it is. So I don't want to improperly use the term grandfathered in, but we're not asking to change what the width is of the alley. That's just the way that it is. And in order to accommodate, as Mr. Klatt said, to not add additional parking and a burden on the residential neighborhood, that's why we tried to fit the 3 in the back. On Bassett, there actually is a handicap parking space, but you can't use it because it's not privately owned. So I just wanted to put into context about the intended use. It's not your typical, she's not trying to put like a Planet Fitness or an Anytime Fitness Center here where it can have multiple people. In fact, it's exactly opposite. Her class sizes, her operations are only appointment only, and she's only gonna have 6 machines. And so the way that Pilates work, it's not a mat class, it's based on a reformer, and she's only gonna have 6. That's what allows her to give one-on-one attention and make it the studio type of session. So at any given class, there's gonna be, if she's fully booked, 7 occupants in the space. And with the credit of 8 in the additional that she's proposing, she has 11. So I just want to alleviate concerns that, okay, when we hear fitness center, this is going to create an undue burden on the area and et cetera, but that's not based on her operation. She just fell in the category of fitness center, which is not necessarily demonstrative of her intended use. So just a little bit of information about the uniqueness of her situation. I also did want to note I couldn't get in to get more information on the other tenants, and we want to love our neighbors, but out of the 5 units next to her, 3 of them have approximately the same square footage of her intended unit. And, you know, based on the uses, which some are business, some are retail, the other one's a hair salon, they require 8 to 13 parking spaces. And they're similarly situated like her, so there is no way that there is additional private parking for them. I don't know how they met I mean, again, I'm not trying to say take it away from the neighbors or anything, but she's in conformity with her space. So the other neighbors are required pursuant to the ordinance, unless they're grandfathered in or something, they are required to have between 8 and 13 parking spaces based on their use. And there's just no way they have that, because I think if we get this, she has the most parking behind the area. The others don't accommodate that. So it is in conformity with the designated use. The fitness center, because that's what she falls in, is allowed at the premises. And the landlord who does own and operate a lot of property in Royal Oak, has had a very difficult time with trying to get somebody in this space that doesn't have an excessive use beyond what she's asking. Because again, if it was straight retail, using the entire gross square footage available, they would need 10. And she's, again, if we were going by her intended use, she's going to be at 6, 7. So that's just a little bit of information about the uniqueness of this property and why, respectfully speaking, the requirements are unreasonable. And I also know that at any point, those parking spaces can be taken away that are owned by MDOT and on Bassett. But right now, they're exclusively being used for this area. And I think that the ordinance, when it was designed, didn't contemplate these kind of unicorn sites like we have here. And I do also want to note that because she's appointment only and she's tailored to people that do work, her peak hours are at times when the other businesses are not going to be open. She's usually very early, like 7 a.m., and then after 5 for her classes. So if that's another point I wanted you guys to be aware of, that it's not going to cause extra. If you had a retailer open, a small shop open during the day, they're going to have ongoing traffic throughout the day. You're not going to have that with her space. And if you guys wanted more information from her, please, she's here. She's excited. She loves Royal Oak, is excited to be part of that. It took her forever to try to find the right space. And each lesson is 50 minutes. That's also important to note, just so you know the duration of how long they will be there. So, does anybody have any questions?
So Mr. Moore and Mr. Platt.
So with the 50-minute lesson, is that designed so that you don't have an overlap of clients coming and going at the same time? Is that
That's just how
part of
long
the
the
design?
session is, but because she is appointment only, there will never be overlap.
There will never be overlap? Okay.
Correct. It's a good point.
Mr. Platt?
That was my question too. So you mentioned 7. Is it 7 plus trainers? So it's like,
Including her.
there's 2 rooms, right?
It's just her. She's the only trainer.
Okay.
She's very specialized in what she does. She has a great following, and now it's at the point where she designed the class to be able to give one-on-one attention. So there's going to be 6 reformers, meaning that's the most number of participants that can be in the class, including herself. We'll make it 7.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So my question is actually for Alex. Just confirmation. So the drive width at the rear, is that an existing condition?
It is.
So just because I don't know the case history, so why isn't it considered grandfathered?
Because they are making modifications to the rear part of it in order to put in these new parking spaces.
Just either for you or for the petitioner, how many days a week does she plan on being open?
7 days a week.
Okay, so there will be traffic continuously going through that.
I mean, the center, I did look at the others, the center is open 7 days a week. So yeah, she will have clients at her facility during her hours of operation.
So clients will be parking there 7 days a week?
If she's booked, correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, it's not open, it's appointment only. So if she doesn't have appointments, it's not like anybody can just walk into a class. Walk-ins are not allowed.
Sure. And I guess the other question then, to kind of add to that, is I'm assuming she's not going to be booking people at 3 a.m., but what would be the latest reasonably one might assume that she could do that?
Last class would be like 8:30, so 9:20.
Okay. Okay.
I'm trying to accommodate the working lifestyle of people.
Yeah, no,
It's not like an anytime fitness, like to your point, where you can just come in and work out whenever you want.
Mr. Reddy?
I just had it looks like right now in the back there are 4 spots, and the
3
drawing has, no, I mean.
Oh, currently.
Yeah. And there are 3 spots, 9 feet, and does look like there's an extra 9 feet to do a 4th spot.
I tried my best to get 3, and I beat up the architect about it, but there isn't 4 spots currently there right now. Alex, I think when we checked it,
ADA.
when, was there,
Yeah, 88.
One of the spaces needs to be ADA.
to get ADA, so there aren't 4 right now. And they're not ADA compliant. It's, what it is right now is just, it's not, to Mr. Christensen's point, it's not actually a designated parking space. It's just like a lot that people park there where, but the way we designed, so like, this is not ADA compliant, so we had to lose a spot in order to get the handicap, even though on Bassett, there is a handicap parking space, we can't use that to count it. So if she stayed retail, we wouldn't have to do that, but because of her category, now all of this has to be reconfigured to try to hit that number. But if you guys, again, are, how it works, and I hope you guys can consider it, but just like put in the back of your mind that it's kind of like, you use the word substantial injustice, that if the previous tenant did use all of the gross area, we would get a credit of 10. And if she got the same credit, we wouldn't even need the variance for the parking.
Other questions? Yes, Mr. Langweb.
On that point, the 10 spaces, Alex, you've got 8 as allowed. So how is those two reconciled?
The zoning ordinance says that when we do parking calculations for retail spaces, it's based upon usable floor area, not gross floor area. So in the absence of a floor plan, the zoning ordinance does state that staff can I guess, estimate or make a reasonable guess upon what the amount of parking or usable floor area would be. And it says we would take the gross floor area and multiply it by 80%. So if you follow if you take the gross floor area for this site, multiply it by 80%, and then divide it by 1 space for every 250 square feet of usable floor area, which is the zoning ordinance's requirements for retail, comes out to 8 required spaces. That's how we gave them the credit of 8 spaces.
So in the prior use or retail type space, they would be able to occupy this with no variances requested or needed. Is that correct?
That's
At
correct.
least as from a parking standpoint.
Correct.
Other questions? I did just have one for you. I pretty much know the answer, but I want it staged so record. Because it's fitness center, say she ends up going on and another fitness center comes in its place, that's a lot more intensive. Would that cause them to come back, or because we've already done this, now it's already?
No, because again, it's not based upon usable floor area for a fitness center. It's based upon maximum building occupancy. So unless they were changing the footprint of the building itself, there would be no need to recalculate the parking.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make it sure. Mr. Langweber?
But on that, if any use comes in here in the future, this variance carries with the property. So it could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it doesn't, I guess, as long as it's not a use, which has a greater parking calculation than what you decide on tonight.
But instead of a credit of 8, if another use came in the future, it would be a credit of 8 plus 2, right?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for the petitioner? All right, we don't have any other questions.
Just to your point, which hypothetically could have been the case if the previous tenant did use all the gross area. So that's another difficulty that the landlord faces is to try to find a tenant that would use less than 10 parking spaces, which is why that's the interesting part of the other neighboring tenants is that some require up to 13, which are just non-existent, not at their fault, it's just the unique circumstances of the property that, so you already have that set up there as a deterrent.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're gonna, because there's no more questions, we'll open this up to public comment, and then afterwards I'll ask if you'd like us to proceed or to adjourn for a month since we're down a full board member, but that doesn't mean we'll have a full board next month, so just be ready for me to
Sure.
Okay. Anyone to speak for or against this case may come forward at this time. Going once? Going twice? All right, public comment is closed. Would you like us to proceed or to adjourn for?
Proceed.
Okay, we'll bring it to the side of the board. Discussion and/or motions. Anyone want to take the first crack? Mr. Bastian, go ahead.
I think there's a very unique circumstance with this property based on the different methods of calculation of usable space based on use. And I also feel there's a very unique circumstance in that the parking spaces do not run with the property but are owned by a government entity. Based on this and the fact that I believe the relief requested by the petitioner is the minimum possible relief, I would be inclined to grant this
Is that a motion?
variance. Yes, I will make a motion to grant this variance as requested.
Is there a second? Mr. Klatt seconds. Go ahead. Any more discussion on, since you started this off?
No.
Okay. Mr. Klatt, anything to add?
I mean, not much more to add. I think this is one of those unique cases this is an easier one along Woodward because we usually don't have a side parking lot like this that has spaces. So based on the use, the excellent explanation of what you're doing here, it seems like we have appropriate parking. I like that they're adding more to the back, plus we have an ADA space. And if you look at, I'm looking at Google Earth right now, it's all concrete. It's not like they're removing green space to create a wider driveway here. It's all paving anyways. So I'm a fan of them adding parking to the back, which would alleviate any parking along Bassett for the neighbors. So I support.
Any other comments?
Can I just clarify, the motion was to approve A and B for both?
Yes, as presented.
Okay, just want to clarify, thank you.
Okay.
Support E and B.
Okay. Any other comments? Well, I will definitely be in support of this. As we all know, those who've been on this board long enough, that Woodward always presents unique circumstances, and usually it's harder than easier to figure out whether or not a case meets practical difficulty. In this case, we definitely can see it in this case of the back alley, of how it's already there, and of just the uniqueness of their own use that they're planning on doing in this compared to what they're placed into. So because of that, I do not have any problem supporting this. If there's no other discussion points, we'll move to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And raise your hand. Aye. Opposed? All right. Motion, the variances are passed. Congratulations. Best of luck to you. Okay. We will move on to case number 25-05-13 for 125 East Houstania Avenue. Whenever you are ready, you may take it away.
Site's located on the north side of East Houstania Avenue, and it's between North Main Street and Rochester Road. This property is in the one-family large lot residential zoning district. The site is already developed with an existing single-family dwelling, and it also has a front-facing attached garage. And the total lot area is approximately half an acre. The petitioner is proposing to remove the existing driveway and convert the existing garage into new first-floor living space. And then a new unenclosed but covered front porch and steps would be built along the front facade. At the rear of the dwelling, a new one-story addition would be constructed with a corridor that connects to a new two-story garage. So, as you all are probably very familiar with, the zoning ordinance does limit single-family dwellings to no more than 3,500 square feet of usable floor area. And as a result of the proposed modifications, it would increase it to 3,952 square feet. So the petitioner is seeking their first variance to waive 453 square feet from the maximum allowable 3,500 square foot usable floor area cap. The zoning ordinance also caps the ground floor area of accessory buildings to no more than 800 square feet or 10% of total lot coverage. So whichever threshold you hit first is the one that applies. The new proposed garage is going to be 988 square feet on the ground floor. There is also a 473 square foot second level to the garage, but the zoning ordinance does specify that this is not included in the variance calculation. So the petitioner needs the second variance to waive the 188 square feet from the maximum allowable 800 square feet of accessory ground floor area. Now, based upon a garage of this design, it's inaccessible from any portion of the second floor, and it also has its own differentiated roof line that is separate from the house. So staff has historically considered garages of this type to be what are called the functional equivalent of a detached garage. So we apply the same zoning ordinance provisions which specifically apply to a detached garage. The zoning ordinance does limit the height of accessory buildings to no more than 15 feet when measured at the highest midpoint of all roof lines. So at the highest midpoint of the proposed garage, that would actually be the dormers that are on both the east and west sides of the roof. At that point, the garage is 21.3 feet, so the petitioner needs a third variance to waive the 6.3 feet from the maximum permitted garage height of 15 feet. I would point out that even if the dormers were removed, the garage would still need a variance, which is noted by the petitioner's architect, but albeit it would be much smaller. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, the petitioner is here to speak on the item as well.
All right, thank you. Questions? Mr. Reddy, and then Mr. Platt.
So you said that the smaller variance, is that the one that's 1 foot 6 inches and 7/8 at the end of our?
Yeah.
Okay.
On page 22 of your packet.
Okay. Mr. Platt?
Alex, I'm sorry if you mentioned it. I saw the petitioner had a letter, and they may have suggested overall lot coverage, but I just wanted to verify from the city's findings. Do we know the overall proposed lot coverage? It's a big lot, but.
Yeah, I calculate 17.2%.
And I think I know the answer to this, but does the city have any type of coverage for impervious surface? And there's a lot of asphalt or concrete proposed here. Does the city have any restriction on that?
No, not unless it was covered by a roof. Of course, we do have regulations on where a driveway can be located, so someone couldn't just pave over the entire front yard.
Okay.
But in terms of like a sheer percentage, no, there's no specific requirement.
Thank you.
Other questions? No other questions? Oh, go ahead.
Actually, a question for Alex. I'm looking at some information, and it looks as though this home was rebuilt in 2006. Were any variances requested at the time that it was rebuilt?
I did manage to find the original building permit plans for when this house was rebuilt, and from what I found, there were no variances that were required at the time. It was just signed off administratively by the city's building division.
Any other questions? Last chance. All right. There's no other questions. If the petitioner is present, please come forward. Present your case, please.
Thank you. Okay. Alex, thanks for all the help and good summary there. Appreciate it. All right, so good evening, members of the board. My name is Brian Phelps, as mentioned. I, along with my wife Antoinette and our 3 young boys, live at 125 East Houstonia Avenue, as mentioned, within the one-family large lot residential district of Royal Oak. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. We're here respectfully to request a few variances related to a planned addition and renovation of our home. As we mentioned, our goal with this project is to make our home significantly more functional and better suited to our family's current daily and long-term needs, while adding value and staying true to the character of the neighborhood. My wife and I purchased our home in 2017, specifically because of the property's unique size, lending opportunity to expand if needed. At the time, our oldest son was just 9 months old when we bought our home, but we always planned to have more kids. Having space behind our house large enough for our kids to play safely, along with so many other things that make Royal Oak great, provided us the opportunity to put down roots and commit to this town as our long-term home. Antoinette and I are blessed with 3 boys now, and as I'm sure many of you could imagine, we have hectic schedules filled with work, school, sports, doctor's appointments more than we'd like, extracurricular activities, and seemingly endless responsibilities. Our home is not well designed or laid out for a family of 5. We lack the space to efficiently come in and out of our home without stepping over one another, or simply to hang backpacks or jackets, place shoes or sports gear somewhere that doesn't trip the next person. Our front door opens a literal 4 inches from the handrail going upstairs. Our hall closet is designed for about 2 people, not 5. The door from our house into the garage hits the door to the basement with no space to hang a jacket or a bag, let alone 5 of them. These challenges are not specific to my family. Any family living in this home would have the exact difficulties, and change would be necessary. Our kitchen pantry is poorly designed and small. Today we're feeding a 2, 6, and 8-year-old. Soon we'll be feeding a 16, 14, and 10-year-old. Ample space to store groceries would be a godsend, not to mention safely park our cars without the need to play a game of musical chairs as my boys reach driving age. By completing this thoughtful renovation and addition, I can provide space for myself to work from home with minimal distraction and not from an upstairs bedroom. My kids will be able to do their homework uninterrupted. They'll be able to play safely in the backyard or have a space to play together inside during long winters. Antoinette will be able to work or teach in peace. I reference the ability for my kids to play safely because it's a genuine concern for us and some of our neighbors regarding the speed at which cars will travel down our street, which is frequently used as a cut-through between Rochester Road and Main Street. We've inquired with the city about adding speed bumps, but have been denied due to the cost and maintenance required. Another point I urge you to consider, like many people my age, Antoinette and I have 3 surviving parents. For 2 to 3 weeks at a time, my mom visits from Florida to see her grandchildren. When she visits, she stays in the basement with no bathroom or running water. She's turning 70 this year, and doing multiple floors of steps to use the restroom or to take a shower has not gotten any easier. My in-laws are in Rochester Hills, and there's a real possibility they may need to live with us in the future, especially as my mother-in-law was just recently diagnosed and had her 2nd chemotherapy treatment today. Our parents and the parents of my generation are going to require our help. This addition to my home provides a thoughtful and flexible layout for any family, especially one who values customizable function. We've carefully designed our renovation and addition plans to minimize impact on neighboring properties. We've been considering this addition to our house since we moved in and took the first step 5 years ago. 4 years ago, even met with Mr. Klatt and other architects to explore options and associated costs. Due to uncertainties around COVID and prioritizing other necessities in life, we decided to wait with hopes that costs would be lessened. Of course, that hasn't happened, but we've taken years to develop this layout with these measurements and this overall design. Our original plan was to add about 20 feet to the entire back of our house, but elected to only add 15 feet for a family room and add 13.5 feet to our kitchen and a larger pantry. This design impacts the neighbors less, keeps our variance requests within reason, and allows for an attached garage via a very functional mudroom within a 70 feet wide property, while only minimally impacting the view of our beautiful backyard. We're confident the changes will enhance the overall appearance and value of the area. We appreciate your consideration and are happy to answer any questions and provide additional details about this project. Thank you.
Questions for the petitioner? Mr. Lineweber, then we'll go this way.
The space above the garage, can you tell us a little bit about the planned use for that?
Yeah, the idea, we've got a small storage area in our basement as is. Part of the main floor of our house today is a garage, so there's no basement underneath it. Having a family of 5 and the lack of storage that we have in our home between closets, basement, we don't have a usable attic space today. The idea would be that we have additional attic space above the garage where we can store things. As drawn, it's just a roughed-in area for us to be able to get rid of our shed in our backyard, store extra things in the garage, and be able to have additional storage for the home.
When I did a quick Google Earth, there's a business that pops up at that address. Is the space above the garage used for the business purposes, or?
No. That's my wife's private lessons. She teaches private yoga, but goes to clients' homes, and she tutors kids.
Okay.
She's a former second grade teacher.
Alex had mentioned that the dormer at either end of or on either side of the garage, that's triggering the height as it's measured. have you looked at eliminating the dormers and frankly further reducing the ridge height to comply so that we would not have that variance in front of us tonight?
We did. To provide ample headspace coming up the stairs as drawn, we needed the dormer on the west side of the garage. On the east side of the garage, it just looked better aesthetically to the point where my logic was, I'll bring it forward to you all. I hope you can understand. It matches the house. It looks better versus just having, a bunch of shingles on a roof. So as far as just providing headspace, also additional storage in the space above the garage, given that we'd be getting rid of our shed, and we could move a lot of seasonal storage up there. So
you're matching the pitch of the roof, which is commendable. The other parts of the house have kind of a clipped off roof profile. Did you look at something like that for the garage?
Renee,
I guess it's clipped in one direction.
I have my architect here. I think she could probably tell you a little bit more about the design that, how we came to what we did. I don't know if that's something you can answer, Renee.
Yeah. The idea was to just keep the front of the house as almost all a hip roof. So keeping with the garage in the same flavor as the main body of the house with the hip roof does reduce head height because you're clipping it in. So if we had large gables, it wouldn't necessarily match the front of the existing house. So that was the thinking there, and then adding the dormers will allow you to actually stand up there.
Okay, I forget whose hands on this side. I saw 3 of them. Go ahead, Mr. Kravitz.
I guess with that garage height in mind, Alex, is there, like for example, if you were to flat top the garage, if you were to do a flat, bring it up to a point and then flat top it, does the ordinance have any restriction against that? The dormer will control it, it sounds like, regardless, right? So if you were to simply cut the top off, it looks like a hip, but it's a flat roof at the very top. Are there any ordinance restrictions regarding flat roofs?
Yeah, the zoning ordinance does actually state that accessory buildings aren't allowed to have flat roofs.
Okay. So that's number one. I guess the question number 2 would be, did you reach out to neighbors?
I did.
Neighbor correspondence?
I did. I've got a handful of letters here signed from neighbors that either support or have no issues with the variances as requested.
If you want to go ahead and
Sure.
present them. And
it's the same letter too, over and over again.
That's fine.
And then I guess last question would be just maybe we're always trying to reduce variances, so maybe rationale behind the garage size.
Mm-hmm.
And why I say that, the interior volume looks like it's about 39 feet, when in a lot of cases we've designed 3-car garages where they're 32, 33.
Mm-hmm.
I see there's a staircase here, but can you maybe explain the rationale behind the need for that size?
Yeah, happy to. So I mentioned the children. We've got 4 bikes, a tricycle, a balance bike, a double stroller, a Thule for a minivan in our garage today. Probably a couple scooters. My kids aren't spoiled, I promise. It's just, how things sort of accumulate over time. In addition to that, I mentioned the 3 surviving parents between Antoinette and I. My dad passed away when I was 16 years old. I have his 1965 Corvette that I want to protect. So by providing a little bit of additional space between kids and doors swinging open, that's the rationale for the additional space within the garage. I understand. I feel like I'll leave it up to the board, obviously, to decide. It's not my decision. The extras, we added a few extra feet to the garage in the later stages of these drawings, and mostly it was due to that of like, hey, if the Corvette were on the side of the garage, the single car garage door entryway, maybe we're going to be using that side a little bit more because you only have to open up like a single car garage door, and that's maybe where bikes are going to be coming in and out more. And it just, with the additional space on the side of the garage, it kind of made more sense to that might be a storage area more than anything. And plus, it's a seasonal car. I only bring it out probably. I'm ready to now, but today was really cold, so hopefully soon here, and then it gets stored for the winter. So that's the reason for the additional space, though.
Last question. Of these letters, are they the two neighbors left and right?
They're not. We have one here. One of my next door neighbors is here tonight, though. I know that, her and I had a conversation about this. I understand her stance on what we're requesting. But my other neighbor, I tried to reach out. I knocked on his door once or twice and just didn't get a hold of him. So these neighbors are from our street, from across the street, and from behind our home, which, as you'll see, Jeff, I heard you're a fan of Google Earth a couple times tonight. So the neighbors behind us on Lakeside Drive, two of their signatures are on there as well. As they understand we may need to come in from the back a couple times to do this work, and they're in support and understanding what we're trying to do to our home.
Thank you.
Next up over here, I think, Mr. Moore, did you have your hand up earlier, or was it? I thought I saw two hands up here. Okay, my mistake. Go ahead then, Mr. Reddy, since I guess I saw incorrectly.
My question is, you've made a lot of compelling arguments for why you need these variances, but we have 4 criteria that we have to meet, and the third one is that the plight of the landowner is due to unique circumstances of the property, and I haven't heard you mention anything unique about this lot when discussing your reasons. So could you give us something unique about this lot that necessitates the extra size of the house and garage and height?
Yeah, I mean, I bought, like I mentioned in my statement, it's just like I was searching for like lot size when looking in Royal Oak, and my wife and I had moved back from Chicago. We wanted to our son was 3 months old when we moved back. He was 9 months old when we moved into the house. We wanted sort of like the city of Royal Oak, walkable downtown potentially, as well as a lifestyle that was going to get my kids outside. And so for that reason, I was searching for larger property. This is what we found. It's 70 feet wide and over 305 feet deep. So the uniqueness of it is its shape, which allows for expansion. And I understand I've kind of stumbled across this variance that I need for the drawings that we've done. As I mentioned in my letter as well, my original drawings had 20 feet added to the back of my home. I also was considering doing a second-story addition so that I could, for the master bedroom, closet, and bathroom side of my house, to be able to make that a little bit more useful, because of how it is today. It's a little tight. So all that being said, the uniqueness of the property is its depth, hence the shape as you see, while also keeping in mind setback regulations and trying to be really thoughtful with what we've built and what we've put together.
Okay. Other questions for the petitioner? Mr. Clint?
No, I just wanted to, it seems odd, but that is often the hardship. It's a large lot. So that's why my first question was like, what's the overall lot coverage here? And it's, if I wrote it down right, it was 17%. So, I mean, in most cases, we allow up to 30% lot coverage in smaller lots. So you do get penalized for having a large lot, and our ordinance doesn't recognize that. So that is a bit of a hardship on these lots.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's something, when I was messaging Alex kind of leading up to this and preparing for this meeting over the last few months, I inquired about that of like, are we, and I've read through agendas and meeting minutes where I could, and understanding that you all will leverage, you'll apply logic and common sense that a half an acre property doesn't necessarily fit the same bounds or rules and regulations as a 6,500 square foot property, right? So my property is almost 22,000 square feet. I'd have to imagine it's probably somewhere in the top 10% of lot sizes in Royal Oak. That's just an estimate. And so, yeah, it's the big reason that really drew me to the property and to choose the home that I did, so.
Any other questions?
I would just say before, I mean, if you have any other questions, please, like, I think I brought it up, but like, I'd encourage you to look at Google Earth and look at like the surrounding, properties and, garages that are there, up on my street, on my side of the street. It's my neighbor to the south, No, to the west is a significantly smaller property, very different. My neighbor to the east is an identical property to mine for the most part. Our garages wouldn't totally be misaligned. They have a detached garage. That's my neighbor that's here tonight too. So I just encourage you to like notice it's just such a deep lot. I've probably got almost 200 feet of length back there to utilize. In addition to that, we have a stamped concrete patio back there and basically high traffic grass areas that makes it really difficult to go grow grass where my driveway would be. In addition to that, I'd be getting rid of my driveway as is in my front yard, so I'd actually be adding some green space in the front to make room for a single lane driveway going up the side of my house, which we have ample space for.
Any other questions? Mr. Langweber?
Just on that last point, the plan as submitted shows the existing driveway in effect remaining in front of the house where it kind of comes up into the converted garage. But you're saying it would be like a drive lane all the way back.
We left, there was, when the house was built in 2006, I have three large-ish, I have two maples and one large, I think it's a Chinese elm in the front of my house. And so in an effort to leave one of the maples, they curved my driveway. And so the driveway kind of goes to the street at the absolute edge of my property because of that curve. But we'll be eliminating that curve and it'll just go straight back to the side of my property. So I would say 0% of my existing driveway is able to be reused other than the part that's on the city side of the sidewalk, basically. So everything else would need to be taken out and a single lane driveway would go up the side of my house.
And that existing driveway becomes green space?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Everyone good? All right, thank you very much. I'll ask you at the end of public comment whether or not you want us to proceed or not. Keep in mind you need 5 affirmative votes from us up here, and there's no guarantee that next month we'll have a full board. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone to speak for or against this case? Please come forward if you'd like. Well, you may.
On the first two, so my apologies.
That's all right. You may or may not. I don't know. We've had people sit in before not saying anything.
I was just going to say the first thing that came to my mind would be that a big yard and all that green space is a hardship. To me, it's not. That's the beauty of the property that we picked out. So to that. But my name is Kathleen Williams. I live at 131 East Houstonia, and I am right next door to 125. My husband and I are both born in Royal Oak, raised in Royal Oak, went through Royal Oak schools, got married in 1986. We rented in Royal Oak, and then we bought in Royal Oak. We lived on 3 streets, Lexington, Mount Vernon, and East Houstonia, because we knew they had the big, deep lots, and that was what we wanted. We purchased that home in 1989. We have raised our family in that house. My son and daughter were both born in Royal Oak at Beaumont. My son went through Royal Oak schools, and my daughter's currently attending the Adult Special Needs Program Trails in Royal Oak. And we love Royal Oak. We raised our children. We juggled all the challenges of living on a busy cut-through street, playing the car game. Once my son was driving age, storage woes. We have 1 full bathroom, no overnight street parking, battles of storing bikes, lawn equipment, and a host of others. But we love our big backyard and how open and yet private it is. With elevation differences, with staggered entries and porches, excuse me, our garages, our comings and goings aren't as shared as some neighborhoods. We've certainly experienced much change in the neighborhood over the 37 years we've lived there, and certainly directly on both sides of our modest 1,200 square foot home. The home east of us had a large addition built when my son was in kindergarten. Many years later, because I couldn't remember the date, the home that was at 125 was a small bungalow with a 1-car detached garage. It was torn down and the current 2,500 square foot home was built. I get that I don't own my neighbor's properties and that you have to deal with changes, but I guess I do that knowing that my city has zoning rules and ordinances that any additions will fall under what is permitted in terms of size, lot, etc. If a plan falls within the zoning requirements, I feel I have nothing to dispute. This is my first zoning board meeting. I've never been to any before. I've never lodged a complaint, and really haven't had one before now. The size of the proposed addition, the new approximately 40-foot long, 2-story, 3-car garage, plus all the concrete to get to it, will take up a very large footprint, more than double the current house and garage size. The driveway currently ends at the front-facing garage, but the proposed driveway will run along the entire side of our house beyond the existing home's footprint, plus the addition of the proposed 15-foot more home, and then fan out into the large attached garage. So it will be in the backyard on the opposite side of the lot from us. Our lots are 70 feet wide. The area cement will cover the majority of the width of that lot from us. So between the area cement will cover the majority of the width of the yard between the garage structure and the driveway property line where our yard starts. It will now give a feel of having a small parking lot border my yard and patio. This plan will very much change the appearance, view, and usage of my yard. In reviewing what the board is to consider, I don't see where the requirements to grant the variance have been met. Do the restrictions unreasonably preempt the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose? No, they can still add an addition within the ordinance. This is just larger. The variance would do substantial justice to the applicant as well as the other property owners. No, not me. My view will now be a 3-car garage and a huge expanse of concrete. So
All right.
lots of permeable surface.
Just
water.
to let you know, your 3 minutes are basically up, so if you could either quickly wrap it up or...
Well, okay. So what I'm saying is that I don't see where that one is met either. The plight of the homeowner is due to unique circumstance of the property? No, because there's a house there already that was built.
Okay, thank you.
After all that, you can't give me 2 minutes to, or a minute
You've had
to
over
read?
3 minutes.
Wow.
No, that's just how our rules go. Our rules are only 3
but a
minutes.
presentation was supposed to be like 10
Thank you.
too. Wow.
I'm sorry, that's... Is there any other one here to speak on public comment? All right. We'll close public comment. Would you like us to proceed or would you like us to adjourn for a month?
Am I able to respond or?
Nope.
Proceed.
Okay, we'll proceed to this side. Discussions and or motions.
I'll make a motion to approve. I think we've done a lot of similar ones before, and I know no case establishes precedent, but based on what I've seen, you're not going to notice the additional square footage in the area. Again, it does not come close to 30% either way, and of course, 968 square foot garage. Is only 4.6% percent of surface area, again, below the 10% that is required or maximum allowed. Additionally, I think, and I've said this for many similar ones before, where
Well, before you go into discussion, is it approve all the variances or just
yes,
certain ones?
I'll.
Is there a second to the motion? Sorry, I don't mean to.
Sorry.
Is there a second? There's no second, so the motion does not go. Is there another motion and or discussion? Mr. Reddy.
I just wanted to start off with a little discussion. Maybe.
Okay, that's fine.
I think the neighbor laid out how I'm kind of feeling about this. Like I asked for some unique factor about the lot, and I don't think, like the neighbor said, the extra size of the lot doesn't seem like it's a hardship. It's the same as it was when they purchased it, and the square footage limit is the same. So I don't see how it's a hardship now. And anyway, that's my feeling about it. Why I would be opposed.
You're pointing this way, like someone had their
No,
hand
no.
up? Okay. Oh,
Yeah, I'll go first. So just to respond to Mr. Reddy, and I think one of the things that you know, the hardship isn't the size of the lot per se. The hardship is the discrepancy that we have in our zoning ordinance. I know that you can't have 3,500 square feet or 30%. For example, you know, in my lot, which is about, I think it's 5,000 square feet, 30% is 1,500. Obviously, you could build up, but just for the sake of the argument. But when you're at 22,000 square feet, which is half an acre, that would be 7,500. I think so in that you know, whatever that range is. So.
Okay, Mr. Klatt.
I was going to say, I know these lots, these cases don't set precedent, but I know that we have given exceptions in the past for larger lots when they're below 30%. I also recall a few years back, I think we approved a lot on Woodside, which is a bit north, closer to the Clausen border, for an attached garage. It was a little bit larger, and that got approved. I also know that, and those are some good points that the neighbor brought up too. But again, that's why I asked about impervious surface. There's really no regulation. They could, in theory, pave their whole backyard. There's nothing against it. If it's Birmingham, yes, there's specific ordinances against that. So we can't control that. We also can't control setbacks. They could build that right to that depth, so we can't really control that either. I guess the only thing I'd be looking at is there a way to make the garage a bit tighter to get closer to that ordinance size, to that restriction? I mean, there's a compelling case. We can't look at vehicles. You know, that's not a hardship. Is there a way just to tighten that up to get that square footage a bit closer to maybe an approvable number?
Mr. Langwood.
I think when you start looking at setbacks and everything else, to say we can, you know, those are conditions of compliance here, other than the 3,500 square feet. So we're kind of picking and choosing, in a sense, what we think is a good number, which I'm not sure. I think we start to get into an area that we're interpreting, reinterpreting aspects of the ordinance that, frankly, may be best handled through the ordinance itself. When you look at the depth of these lots, that in a sense is arbitrary when you look at the presence of a house on a street. It's the setbacks, it's the massing, it's the height, it's those kinds of things that affect the neighborhood directly. Now, in this case, I would say by removing the garage from that visual, it's an improvement aesthetically because it creates a porch where one does not exist today. So I think that's a positive. But I think when you look at the square footage aspect of it, it should be lot driven, and I'm not sure that the argument for a large lot being a hardship has weight in this case. So that fundamentally is something that I'm wrestling with. I'll just say that.
Other comments? Yes.
So I'm in agreement. I don't believe that the size of the lot constitutes a practical difficulty. And then I also want to add that I don't feel it provides substantial justice to the neighbor. I think it's going to be an excessive increase in the amount of frontage that neighbor has against their property.
Yeah, I also have concerns about the substantial justice to the neighbor. I mean, we heard from a direct neighbor, and the letters in support were surrounding neighbors, so I'm struggling with that.
So one of the requirements that any variance request coming before us needs to meet is hardship, obviously. I hear a significant amount of hardship from the petitioner, but I don't hear hardship based on the features of the property as it sits. I hear ample personal hardship, and you have my greatest sympathies, but I'm not hearing anything to my ears that sounds like substantial hardship with the property itself. As this property was built in 2006, someone lived there for 11 years before the property was sold to the petitioner, and no variance requests were made for the property at that time. So I'm not inclined to approve the variance at this moment.
Is that a motion?
Do we have a motion?
No, I
Okay,
am
okay.
saying, does he want to make a motion based upon your thoughts?
No, I'll allow further, I'll definitely wait for further discussion. I'm anxious to hear what my counterparts would say.
Sorry, no. Go ahead, Mr. Clapp.
I just want to point out one thing too. I know there's this, I'm hearing a lot of, I don't say negative aspects of this, but we also in the past have also granted people the ability to maybe postpone and come back and maybe tighten up. I don't know if the members up here see that if there is a squeeze or a tighten, would that be amenable to an approval down the road? I don't know, I just want to throw that out there too. Instead of denying outright, we want to give the applicant maybe a chance to squeeze.
You did ask to proceed, though.
Yeah, we did ask for proceed, but that was also before talking about some of the stuff. So I understand what you're going with. Other discussion points and or motions? The only discussion point I'll bring up is in thinking, I know we never do precedents, but if this was on Vincetta, where all the other houses are large lots and all the other houses are 4,000 square foot houses, that's where I keep on coming in. This is a larger lot in my thought process. I do agree that I don't see any hardship when it comes to the height of the garage. I totally agree with that one. But the size of the garage for the size of the lot and the size of the house for the size of the lot, it's both under 20% over what we would normally do, which is well under what many of the other large lots are. So that's why I don't necessarily have an issue on a large lot per se. Agree, it would be nicer if it could tighten up. I'll agree with that point. But we can't design on the fly either, so that's the other thing. That's my only comments.
Can I just remind the board to remember practical difficulties?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I guess another practical difficulty could be, and this is not making a motion, this is just a thought, is perhaps when the house was built, there was, I don't know how many people lived there, but maybe it was 1 or 2 people, and now there's 5 living there, including 3 young kids. So I don't want to say that the kids are a practical difficulty, but in some ways, you know, it was one person who lived there. Okay, so 1 person who lived there versus 5. I mean, it's going to be done very differently.
Please. I'm trying to silence him too. I agree.
Does anyone else have anything to? I'll just go ahead with the motion then. It sounded like there was support for a motion to deny the variances as requested.
All variances?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a second?
Just question.
Wait, is that a second, Mr. Moore?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay. We'll move on to discussion. Go ahead.
No, I'm just, if denied, they have to make significant alterations to the plan, correct?
It would have to constitute what's called a material change. If not, they would have to wait a year to reapply if it's denied tonight.
So is a material, well, again, they can make it compliant, but I guess what constitutes a material change? You know, versus another option to allow them to come back to. Yeah, my only thought is, I think there's a lot of positives in this design. I think, like Mr. Langweber pointed out, the streetscape, right? Royal Oak is, I think, it's characteristic for having walkable neighborhoods, front porches. I think front-facing garages are uncommon. So I like the idea of removing that. I think that's a positive. That's a win for the street. I think the front porch is a win for the street to make this house better. I mean, for the most part, the garage is tucked in the back. I know it's not doing the neighbor justice, but again, there's positive attributes here. I think maybe hearing from the rest of the board members, are there some touch points that are setting them off? Is it just the height? Is it the dormers? Are there some things that maybe could be amended that could satisfy all?
There was a motion, there was a second, so Mr.
Okay.
Reddy, go ahead.
So, Mr. Chair, before I lay out the motion, is it acceptable to ask the petitioner if he wants to?
Sure.
Do we need to withdraw the motion
Yeah, you
first?
need to withdraw the motion, but yeah, and then ask, and then if,
Can we table the motion?
would you just say you withdraw the motion?
All right, I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay, now you can ask if you want to go ahead.
Do you want to come back? That's something that, yeah.
I'm curious to find out where you all end in this, totally understandable. If the question is about the height of the garage, I don't know how much the height of the garage is going to change in the grand scheme of things, because we have the space to move it, and it's still gonna be measured a certain way, the dormers just make it look better. So there's that as far as the motion to deny if it's on that particular variance. If it's redrawing the size of the garage, there's an opportunity to make the garage smaller very easily. That's not, to Mr. Klatt's point, by making the house smaller, that changes a lot of things. A garage is a little bit easier to do. I think Renee, my architect, could second that idea. But yeah, to answer your question more directly, I'm okay with moving forward with the vote.
Okay, so okay. You want to move forward?
Move forward with the vote on this whole thing, or to change it and bring it back for?
That's what I'm curious about as well.
No, you have to decide one way or
Well,
another.
I'm trying to understand. The gentleman who went first, he was going back and forth between how many feet of variance he was asking for. If you were to tell me exactly what it is that I would need to suggest, I can tell you, like, it is very easy for me to make my garage to cut about 100 feet from about 100 square feet from my garage, probably. So if that particular variance is jumping out at you, then that's the one. That's an easy one.
All I can tell you is I'm about to make a motion to deny out of courtesy to you based on what Mr. Klatt said. You have a chance to withdraw and come back with a different plan. Do you want to do that?
If we don't withdraw, what happens? We have to wait a year?
We'll vote.
Yeah, we'll vote,
but
and
do we have to wait a year if it's denied, or do we wait
Yes.
a month?
Yeah.
It's denied, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that question, because, yeah, waiting a year is basically out of the question, but I can't read the room as to where this is gonna go. Okay.
So, would you like them to make a motion? then
Yeah.
again?
I move that we deny the variances as requested.
Is there a second? Just
Second.
2 more seconds. Go ahead, Mr. Reddy.
I think that the practical difficulty, as stated, that it's a large lot, it doesn't really hold well for me. I don't believe this will do substantial justice to other property owners. We have the direct neighbor who says it will not. I don't think this is due to unique circumstances of the property. I mean, it's a large lot. There are other large lots. We say at the beginning of every meeting that we don't write the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance has been written, and 3,500 square feet is the max for this zoning district and also the large lot zoning district. So there should be something unique about the dimensions of the lot, which they don't seem to be here. The size of the family, unfortunately, is not something we couldn't raise the square footage to 20,000 square feet if they had 20 children, right? So those are the reasons I would be denying these, unfortunately.
Mr. Moore, anything to add?
Sure. As mentioned earlier, one of the requirements that we're required to consider is that the variance would do substantial justice to the applicant as well as to other property owners in the district, and a lesser relaxation than that requested would not give substantial relief to the owner of the property or be more consistent with justice to other property owners. As we heard from a direct neighbor who was not in favor of this plan, and I do think that there are opportunities to make reductions in the plan that would be seen more favorably.
Other people to speak? Mr. Klatt.
maybe this is the wrong time to bring this up too, but we do have, this is 3 variances we're talking about, right? This is all 3
Yep,
on the table.
yep.
So we have the house square footage,
Yep.
and then we have the garage.
Yep.
I haven't heard a lot about negativity surrounding the house size. Maybe I'm wrong. I think a lot of it, maybe, I don't want to speak for the neighbor, what I heard is just the depth of that garage in the backyard. Just bring it up. Would it make sense maybe to split these to allow
I'm
maybe a vote
amenable
on the
to
house
doing them
versus
one by
the
one.
garage?
Mr. Moore, are you amenable to doing them one by one?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds great to me.
Let's do the height first. I'm going to amend my motion that we deny variance C, waiving 6.3 feet from the maximum allowable height.
Oh, yeah, I second. Sorry.
All right. Discussion, anyone on this one?
I'm going to vote against the motion to deny. I think that there could be possibly something that is in there that we could, maybe require so it doesn't become livable space. But I know that the dormer was a pretty significant, issue that, or it was part of the design that they had. And again, I still kind of fall back to the practical difficulty. It was a house built for one person now having 5 people in it. So if they needed that additional, if they need that additional storage and they need the, additional thing, and as long as there's a way for it not to be converted into any type of living space, I don't have a problem with it. So I'm going to vote against the motion.
Other discussion points? Mr. Lineweber?
I look at the garage in both issues. One is its footprint, the size of it, and that's driving the height when you start looking at profiles of the roof. So taking them independently is fine. The garage is truly a large structure. You look at it compared to the house and the elevation that's here. It's an imposing garage, and it's almost not a secondary feature. It's a primary when you are a neighbor in the back. So I'm going to be supporting the motion, and yes, I'll just leave it at that.
All right. Mr. Klatt?
Yeah, that's part of the struggle, because in reality, it's 188 square feet. So that's roughly if you take 25 feet as the depth of the garage, that's about 7.5 feet, right? If they were to reduce the overall length from 40 down to 30 some odd feet, it would comply. It would comply from a setback standpoint. They could still have all that impervious surface. So it's not changing the physical appearance of that structure, right? I agree with Mr. Lineweber, reducing that length would then in turn reduce the roof volume too to some degree. It's really the dormers that are driving that. So that's my struggle with it. It's not going to solve the neighbor's issue of the paving in the back and the depth. It shaves 7 feet, which is significant. That's why I was suggesting, can we make it comply? Can the garages tighten up? They can still build it, but we can't change the asphalt. We can't change the length. They have a ton of depth, and the setbacks are deep on these lots, so they can build it back there. It's just we're looking for that overage.
I just want to bring it back to I still don't see what it is, the actual practical difficulty it is that we're facing. And so for that reason, we can divide it up into 3 and that's fine, but without a justification for a variance, I don't see what problem we're solving here. I understand the idea that the family is large, but the applicant also selected this house. So I see that as a self-created situation, and therefore not a practical difficulty that we can address through the variance process. Excuse me, so I just want to bring it back to that I don't see what the practical difficulty is here.
Any other comments? Mr. Reddy?
There's one thing I forgot to mention. The petitioner did come up and said, yeah, I could make it smaller. So I think there is a lesser variance that could be granted here.
Yeah, I would say that's related to a different variance. This is related to the height. Understood, though. Any other comments on this one? On this one, although I'm torn, I understand it helps. The design helps with making it fit in with the house and everything. We see how dormers always cause these problems with garages with meeting the height requirement. Although there are some people who've gone out there and able to get a dormer on a garage and still have an attic because of how the size of their garage and the way that they did their roof. We've also seen garages that come in here that don't look like the rest of the house to get that attic space, and maybe it's not a full stand-up person, but you at least got the attic space in there. So unfortunately, I don't see the practical difficulty on why they need the extra height on this case, for this case. And unfortunately, that's how it is, in my opinion, too. I agree. Any other comments? All right. All those in favor of denying the request, as the motion stated, or the motion was to deny variance C, please signify by raising your hand, agreeing with the denial of C. Okay? All those opposed? Okay. So the motion carries. C is denied. Is there a motion for any other variances that we want to take a crack at?
Mr. Reddy's on a roll.
All right, I'm gonna throw a curveball here for Mr. Reddy. I'm gonna vote to approve A and only A, which is the 453 square feet.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think I've said it before, and I guess I'll say it again. I think 453 square feet on 3,500 is, again, it's within that 20% that we've talked about in the past. Overall, it's still about 22% of the total lot coverage area. So again, well within 30 feet. And the practical difficulty of this, I maintain, is the size of the lot and the zoning, the way that the zoning ordinance is written. 3,500 square feet goes a long way depending on the size of your lot. So I'm going to vote to approve, or going to motion to approve, sorry.
Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the requested size of the house. That the practical difficulty has been demonstrated there, and that wasn't my concern for the neighbor.
Mr. Clapp?
I agree with Mr. Moore, Mr. Wolf on that one. The garage seems to be the bigger challenge here.
Mr. Reddy?
I'll be opposed. What I would say is, we don't write the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance is 3,500 square feet for this lot, for this zoning district, the large lot zoning district. It could have been based on a percentage, but it's not. We have granted square foot variances before, but there were also unique circumstances of the lot. This is a pretty regularly shaped large lot, so I don't see where there is a unique circumstance of this lot that is a hard or practical difficulty necessitating the extra square footage. So I'll be opposed.
Comments? Mr. Lineweber?
Question, the porch on the front, is that included in that square footage?
No, because it doesn't constitute usable floor area, but it is included in lot coverage.
Okay, thank you. And the mud room in the back, is that included in the dwelling square footage or in
Yes.
the auxiliary?
No, that would be part of usable floor area for the house.
Okay.
Other comments? I'll be in support of this because, as Mr. Lineweber is sort of getting at, is that mudroom area there, that's, let's see, 7 times 30, so that's 210, thank you, 210 square feet. So that alone, just because of that square footage, is already almost half of what going over the 3,500 is going towards. So if they actually tighten up the garage and the garage was attached, who knows what, but we're not designing on the fly. In any way, the practical difficulty I agree, is the size of the large lot. Hampering large lots to the same requirements that normal 6,000 square feet lots get hammered to. And as we see commonly, there are larger houses on larger lots all throughout Royal Oak. many of which were there before the whole 3,500 came up into case. This may or may not have been that case, but it's my thought is the practical difficulty is hampering this one with not being fair enough with the other large lots. So that's why I'm all right with giving this modest increase over the square footage.
Yeah, I just want to state for the record that my understanding of the practical difficulty is slightly different and not based on the square footage of the lot. It's based on the fact that their family has significantly grown since they purchased this home and they need to have the additional space to accommodate their family.
Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right, the motion carries 5-3 on that one, so that just leaves us the last one to deal with. Who wants to take the first crack at that? Mr. Reddy, will it be you or will it be Mr. Wolf? Mr. Reddy?
I move that we deny requested variance B.
Is there a second? Mr. Moore?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Reddy?
Okay. Well, I don't believe there's a practical difficulty related to the lot, and that I don't believe granting this variance would do substantial justice to neighboring property owners, as we've heard. And the petitioner said a lesser relief would be just fine with him. So I think, criteria B is an issue. I think criteria C, that I don't think there is anything unique about this lot that necessitates the larger garage. So that's why.
Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I'll echo my same concerns as before with the concerns shared by the neighbor, and I do think that there is a way to reduce this garage.
Okay. Other comments? Mr. Wolf?
I will be voting against this. Again, I think it's 4.6% total lot coverage area with the improvements to the garage, and I don't believe that let me say it the other way. I believe that the size of the lot and the way the zoning ordinance was written is the practical difficulty. So,
other comments? Mr. Klatt?
I mean, for what it's worth, this is the only one that I had some issue with. House, fine. Dormers, I'm okay with. The dormers, I think, were designed tastefully. They're not extending the full width. I think they're tasteful, and that kind of hurts them a bit from a height standpoint. But I think this could be squeezed, and the applicant said so themselves. So this would be the other three. This is the only one that I had an issue with.
Okay. Mr. Lineweber?
Yeah, when I look at the floor plan, there's roughly 4 feet, let's say, times the entire width that's been really set aside for that staircase. That alone accounts for 160 roughly square feet. So of the 188 square feet we're in excess, there's 160 of it right there. So I do think there's opportunity to tighten this up to get it within ordinance. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Other comments?
it's more of a question. I'm assuming that if, for example, Mr. Lineweber's suggestion of 160 feet taken off, so they only need 28 square feet extra, Alex, that would require another variance and that would not count as a material change?
If it was just a simple reduction, it would of 28 or so square feet, it would still be over the ordinance standard of 800.
But it would not count as, would it be considered by the city as a material change?
No, it's just simply a reduction. It's not a material change.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments? I will say I'll be against this motion. The reason why is because there's been talk of reducing the variance, but if this motion passes, there's not even the chance to ask them about reducing it. It's just outright denial. So because of that, I was hoping for a motion to a reduced one ahead of time. Without that chance, there's no way of seeing it if this motion carries, and therefore I will be against it. Mr. Moore.
How would we know what to reduce it to, though?
We could propose something.
Okay.
But that's just because I agree with the practical difficulty of this being a large lot and being hampered by the large lot of hey, I got to have the same garage on a large lot as a person on a 6,000 square foot lot. And it not being that. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of the variance, which is to deny B, please signify by saying aye and raise your hands.
Aye.
All right, opposed? Nay? Okay, motion passes to deny it. Congratulations. Well, so if you're trying to keep score, your house has been granted to have that square footage. However, your garage has been denied the square footage as well as the dormer. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask staff tomorrow, and they'll go over it more with you. All right, moving on to other business. Reconsideration request for case number 24-09-28. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that.
No, I'll go through it.
Okay.
So last September, the board heard a case at 2717 Ardmore to permit construction of an addition to an existing single-family dwelling, as well as an attached garage addition. And he also proposed a separate pool house or accessory building at the rear of the property as well. At that time, staff identified 8 separate variances that were required based upon the plans that were provided. And we did list those again in the memorandum for you to refresh yourselves with. Variances A, B, C, and D were approved. The petitioner voluntarily withdrew variances G and H. Variance E was denied by the board, and variance F failed to obtain the minimum number of affirmative votes in order to be approved or denied. And the petitioner has submitted the attached letter which describes their grounds to reconsider variance F. Now, the board does have the authority to reconsider past actions taken on a case if it's proven there was missing important or crucial evidence that led to you making a mistake or a hasty decision in your original action in September. Now, as per Robert's Rules of Order, a motion for a reconsideration can be applied to a vote on any motion, whether or not it received enough votes to either approve or deny it. In other words, I guess since it failed to approve or deny, it can still be brought forth for a reconsideration. Now, I do want to make it very clear to the board that the objective tonight is not to go back and rethink your original decision or even to really consider the plans that were proposed at that time. Rather, your objective is to decide whether or not there was, in fact, missing crucial or evidence that led you to making a mistake in September. And of course, this burden of proof falls on the petitioner who is here to discuss this with you. Now, in terms of potential outcomes, there must be at least 5 affirmative votes to approve a reconsideration request. And the motion to approve the reconsideration is only allowed to come from one of the members who voted to deny variance F. So that means the motion for approval is only allowed to be made tonight by either Mr. Wolf, Mr. Reddy, or Mr. Lineweber. The second for the motion, however, can come from anyone despite how they originally voted or if they were even serving on the board at that time. Now, if the reconsideration is approved, the petitioner needs to then submit a new application plans and application fee to our office for us to process for a public hearing. That would be at a later date. Now, if the request is denied, one option that the petitioner has is just to wait and then submit a new application after the 1-year anniversary from the board's original hearing back in September. But by the way the calendar works with the application deadlines, as soon as that would actually be the October meeting. A few other things I do want to point out is that the decision on the reconsideration is final. So in other words, the petitioner couldn't request a reconsideration of a reconsideration. Another potential scenario that could occur tonight is that none of the 3 board members that I named are willing to make a motion to approve the reconsideration. In that case, the reconsideration still fails due to lack of a motion. Although alternatively, one of those 3 board members could also make a motion to deny the request. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, like I said, the petitioner is here and I would encourage you to engage in conversation with him. Thank you.
Is there any questions? No questions? All right. The Petitioner, you may come forward and present what new evidence you may have.
I appreciate and realize I'm standing between you and getting home to your family and loved ones, so thank you very much. Again, I appreciate all the work that Alex has done. As others have pointed out, he's incredibly helpful along with the rest of the planning department. And I want to stick to the point of why I believe that this requires reconsideration. And I believe the chair brought this up, and I have a striking suspicion that the training that you mentioned earlier was with regard to my case before that. If you guys, the people that were on the board, if you recall, at the meeting, you guys were incredibly helpful to me. I did not understand the rules, and you guys spent quite a bit of time with me. In this particular variance request, it was a couple things happened. One, during discussion, I believe it was Mr. Klatz asked if it is denied, could the petitioner come back? And the city's answer back to that is, if we're being generous, yes, but it's a difficult sell. That turned out not to be true, that the true process is coming through this rehearing request as opposed to what was believed at the time. Also, the chair, upon setting the motion, made comment that if the motion failed, he'd be willing to make a motion for a smaller amount because we were talking through those. And then once that was made and it did not pass, the city had said that no further action was allowed to be made, and we broke at that point. And it sounds from the training that you shared earlier in today's session that there's been clarification that would suggest a different path if that same thing came up today. So for those reasons, I believe it would be proper to grant me a rehearing request. Grant the request for rehearing, please.
Mr. Reddy.
Is there any new evidence related to the case? Any new details about the lot or the plans or?
So my understanding from Mr. Borowski is that talking through the details of that would happen if you guys approve the rehearing request, that I would bring that in front of you, as opposed at this point here was, would you guys be willing to rehear it?
I think we would only decide to rehear it if there is new evidence.
So the new evidence is that it's my understanding that the advice given by city during that meeting was incorrect, as well as the council was unaware of what the rules as to be applied were, that they were not aware of at the time.
So just about.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Klett, I think I saw your hand up.
Maybe it's not appropriate to ask, is there design updates that you're considering with this? Maybe I don't remember all the details.
Correct, and Mr. Borowski can probably say what he's allowed to say. I originally, I've done a full redesign that's significantly different. I have pictures of what it was before and what it is after, if that's acceptable to share. I've got no problem. I brought those and I can share those. And the request to bring that here was denied because it wasn't a material change.
That's what I was going to ask next.
Even though it was a redesign, because it's the same piece, and and you speak for the city. I'm sorry.
They said if you have handouts.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Moore.
Yeah, I would refer everyone to page 5. There's a brief summary of changes that were included in the packet by the petitioner.
The first envelope going around is what was presented with the case. The second manila envelope, there's a copy for everybody. I made 10 copies of it.
To be clear, the purpose of the vote today is not to review
Correct.
new information or weigh in upon that new information. It's to determine
Was
if-
there missing evidence?
was there missing evidence at the time,
That's correct.
not the new evidence coming
Correct.
in. So
He can still hand out,
this is
though.
a courtesy, absolutely. And then the ability for somebody to resubmit is based upon if they make a substantial, what's the substantive change?
Material.
Material
Yeah, it has
change.
to be a material change. So for example, if someone was denied, say, an accessory structure, they can't just come forth with a reduced size of an accessory structure because the nature of the request is still the same. But on the flip side, if someone was saying, you know, instead of, I was denied a variance request for a garage or an accessory structure, but I want to build, you know, another, you know, level on my house, and therefore I need a variance for height as opposed to, you know, garage dimensions, that's a substantial material
So
modification.
if somebody, and I'm just making this up, if somebody had 10, you know, detached buildings and the ordinance said you can have one, and he came back with 5, is that a substantial change?
It's simply just a reduction as opposed to a substantial material change.
But it's a 50% reduction,
Mhm.
which some would say is substantial.
Yeah, and
So
it is subjective, but that's that's the determination that our office made in relation to this case. Because the nature of the request is still pertaining to an accessory building and its quantity.
The challenge, I guess, for us is, and I have not reviewed this information, but it's to determine if there was anything presented at that time that is a warrants revisiting the issues, whether or not they've changed at this time. Okay. If the question of when somebody makes a change, is this substantial or not, is not necessarily relevant to where we are today. Is that correct?
In terms of making that determination?
Yes.
No, it's not.
That's up to you guys.
That's correct.
And then is there, if you don't like what he's submitted as a substantial change, does he have remedy at that point?
Well, he can request a reconsideration request, which is what you
Which is what we're doing.
Correct.
But that would have to be based upon seeing this information, which we're not.
Right, because your decision is based
Basing the
upon.
decision on,
Yeah,
right.
You're not making your decision based upon a set of plans that are being proposed at that time. If that was the case, it would essentially just be almost like a new public hearing for a zoning request.
Okay.
You just need to make a decision, and again, that burden of proof falls upon the petitioner who's here to prove to you tonight whether or not there was a mistake that was made in September.
Correct. So it's not evaluating the new information that you're presenting.
That's correct.
Sorry, that's what I was trying to say in the beginning, and that's why I wanted to make
So
sure that I
I-
asked before sending it out. And my point was that the mistake that was made is that the board was not fully understand what they were voting for and what the outcome of that vote was, that they believed that there was a chance to re-vote on it. In fact, the chair was pretty specific, and I'm not sure if you remember your comments, I don't want to speak for you, but the way that I remember it, the chair was willing to approve a smaller amount, and so he was going to push forward the full number and then come back to the other one, and when was then told he was unable to.
I can't make any motions, by the way.
Correct, yeah.
Sorry.
So,
But you were gonna entertain a motion,
But a
sorry.
suggestion could come out of discussion, and it did, and the revision to that motion did not occur. And so the motion that you're asking us to reconsider was voted upon at that time. So, okay, I just.
Thank you.
Mr. Wolf.
Question for Alex. So let's just say, for example, this is granted today, and he applied for going through the variance request through the city. What is the earliest that he? Is a two-part question. What is the earliest he possibly could be heard?
We'd likely be looking at July.
July.
That's the absolute soonest.
So at the absolute most, he's saving 3 months.
It could be looked at that way.
Absolute most, right? Okay. And the second question is there a financial? Is he going to pay more one way or the other? Is
Yeah,
that the
since
same?
it would be processing a brand new case, he would still have to pay a brand new fee. in conjunction with the new application.
Either way, or
Yes.
okay. So just I'm repeating this back to you. He's saving at most 3 months of time.
3 months and $700. Well, he'd still have to pay the $700.
Still has to pay the $700. Okay, so 3 months, but he's not financially. There's no way either way.
Mr. Wolf, just to add on to that, the week after the session, I inquired about the Mr. Klatt's statement and tried going forward with it at that time. I've been working on this since the week after that, so it's 3 additional months on top of it. As you point out, is already at 9 months.
Yeah, and I think what I get it, and I was rewatching the tape earlier.
I'm sorry.
No, of course, no. It's it puts me. I just don't. Again, unless there's a significant reason for you to, unless you really need those 3 months, I don't know, maybe to build everything by the end of the construction season or whatever. My gut says is to have you take that extra 3 months and really just do it right. But I can't tell you what to do. But that's how my brain is rolling.
But I don't think that's material to your decision. Your decision was there information not available at the time that they made the call?
Yeah.
And to make that, I have plenty of information about the hardship and the difference.
Sure.
I've been asked not to present that because it's not germane to what you guys are deciding.
Right.
But
Okay.
I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah, no, because I'll be really honest with you. I think, again, having not seen your new plans and everything else, I would say there isn't a reason to rehear it. And again, if it's another 3 months, do it the right way. Go back. Again, it's not costing you any more either way. So, with all due respect, that is how my mind is thinking.
I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Is there any motions? Mr. Reddy?
I don't have a motion, I have a comment. So as one of the 3 people who could make a motion, I would say that I'm not inclined to at the moment, but I would welcome anyone who wants to convince me otherwise. But what I would say is, I also watched the case again. We did give 1.5 hours to this case. I think we gave the petitioner several chances to amend the variance request. There were 8 variances requested, and some were pulled. We approved. We gave feedback, and I'm worried that this might set a precedent of petitioners just bringing a laundry list of requests and going for what they can get, and then saying they want to reconsider when it doesn't get passed. That's what I'm concerned about, and I do feel that we gave it fair consideration at the meeting. Just like today, we gave the petitioner several chances to ask for a lesser variance. So that's my feeling on it right now. Just add real quick, and I don't see any new evidence presented today. So.
Mr. Wolf?
I too will not be making a motion.
Mr. Langweber?
I would like to make a motion that we reject the request. With all respect to your plans and modifications, the evaluation criteria for this decision is the information presented that day and the decision process that we had. And I believe in reviewing the tape and that we were clear on the motion and the decision that was made. I think subsequently to that, modifications are handled administratively, and I feel for you, but I think that's where the substantial change needs to be worked out. But as far as a mistake being made, I don't believe that had occurred. So that's my motion.
Well, I was going to say, if I remember correctly, I don't think you even have to make a motion, because if none of the 3 of you make a motion to reconsider, then there's nothing to then end the discussion.
You can still make a motion.
Okay. It's fine if you want to. I don't know if you want to muddy the water.
I would rather
Okay.
make the motion.
Okay, so you have a motion. Is there a second to deny the, okay, second by Mr. Wolf. Any other further?
No further comment.
Okay, Mr. Wolf, anything?
Again, same thing. With all due respect, I think it's in your best interest to do it right. Come back in October, and really, make sure that all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. I do agree with Mr. Reddy that I don't want people coming here and thinking that they can get a laundry list, and if they don't get it all, they'll come back on their second try. So. I welcome with what you're going to do in October. I have no doubt that it's going to be really nice, considering we gave you 7 of the other 8. So I'm sure you're going to do a great job.
Any other comments? Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I'll just say, while I like your new plans, I will support my peers in their decision. But good luck with your next time here in your new plans.
Any other comments? I will be in support of the motion. I consider the fact that you 3, who are the only ones who could make a motion, do not wish to. I will respect your wishes, and I have agreed with some of your points. So therefore, I will be in favor of the motion. All those, if there's no other discussion, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of the motion to reject the reconsideration, signify by saying aye, and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. All right, move on to public comment. Anyone here for public comment? Going once? Going twice? All right, 3 times we're closed. Who wants the motion to close us out? Mr. Lineweber, I saw your hand first.
Motion to adjourn.
I think he wanted to get into the motion before you. And we had a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we're done. Thank you.